Tell me about the cover of the book. We're seeing it live on screen.
This cover actually comprises 4 major events that mark the book. Actually, there are many more events.
Okay.
And of course, on the forefront is my role as the coal secretary, where one had to do a lot of mining of variety of things apart from coal.
Correct.
The next one is on the left side. You see the CBSE exam paper leak. That was perhaps one of the most trying times of my career.
Correct.
Right at the end. On the right side, on the top, you see 2 smart cards. They reflect the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, arguably the biggest health insurance scheme that was launched in 2007.
Right.
Below that is the event that shook the country, the Babri Masjid demolition.
Babri Masjid, right.
The cover reflects 4 major events. There are other interesting events, but these were the highlights of my career.
That's
some of them.
That's fantastic. In fact, a lot of the people who have asked us questions beforehand have asked about your tenure as coal secretary, and how one of my favorite questions is how do you still rather have this unfazing smile on your face in spite of everything that has come your way?
See, if you got to travel a mile, then you got to smile, no?
Correct. And you have traveled so many miles.
You turn stones into milestones.
Yes.
So I travel miles with smiles.
Correct. Wonderful. 5 more minutes until we allow everyone to join. And while you're having tea, I'll also have a sip of my coffee.
Yes. So you are in Mumbai, Aditi?
I am, yes. You are in cold, wet Delhi. Yes. I'm in hot and humid already, Mumbai.
Mumbai event is sometimes in April.
Correct. Yes. And in fact, for everyone who's joining us, let me just share when Sir's book is going to be launched. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, that's it.
These are the dates. We have people who are joining us from all over the country in this webinar. And Delhi is 23rd February, which is the incredible event that you're talking about. Lucknow is 5th of March. Kolkata is 12th of March. Bangalore is 23rd of March. Mumbai is 6th of April. And sir, will these all be open events for everyone to attend?
Yes, they are open events, but we are requesting everyone to request for an invite.
Right.
The reason being that we expect more people than there would be space. So we would want people to seek some entry.
Of course. Yes.
So that they have place to sit.
Correct. Again, I'll just repeat the dates for the benefit of the people who've just joined us. Sir's book is launching in Delhi on the 23rd of Feb, in Lucknow on the 5th of March, in Kolkata on the 12th of March, Bengaluru 23rd of March, Mumbai 6th of April, and Jaipur is on the 18th of April. And please, please register to seek an invite to attend these events. They're open for all, but the earlier you register and show interest, the better. This is the beautiful cover that we were chatting about earlier. And forward by Nandan Nilekani. That is, again, one of the architects of one of India's other biggest movement, so to speak.
I had a very interesting interaction with Nandan Nilekani when he became the head of what came to be Aadhaar.
Right.
When he was appointed as head of UAIDI, when he was coming for the first time to Delhi after appointment, we were the first to have chat on this issue. I was doing a smart card program, which was a biometric based smart card.
Okay.
I was going in for this major challenge that he had.
Okay.
So I enjoyed the presentation that he made one-on-one in my office.
Oh, really?
And that's when I remember he having guided me, and I contributed a bit to this in the Aadhaar.
Wow. That is.
So we had very interesting interaction as we went along and rolled out the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana.
Right.
We doing the Aadhaar.
Right. Incredible. Just a couple of minutes before we start. To everyone who's joined us, hello and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on a Tuesday afternoon. We promise you this is going to be an incredible conversation with Mr. Anil Swarup. One of the most incredible things about Sir that I just found out yesterday is that Sir reads 100 books a year. And I was sharing this with my father-in-law in the morning, and he said, "Wow, that's a book every 3 days. Can you believe that?" What an incredible achievement that is, especially when we are when we at Stones to Milestones talk about creating a nation of readers, you are kind of emulating that. And I think you're reading for so many more people.
The more I read, the more I discover how ignorant I am. So I read more to discover my ignorance further.
Oh no, and I mean, and the more you read, the more you can dispel our ignorance, I think. Also with
so much to learn, so much
yes.
to learn.
What do you enjoy reading the most about, Sir?
I enjoy everything. I read pulp fiction to economics to theology, all sorts of books I read. I mean, there's no restriction on the. In fact, I alternate between a serious one and a pulp fiction.
Oh, nice.
I enjoy
Nice.
both of them.
And what are you reading now?
I've just completed a very interesting book. This one was regarding the one that has been recently written. I'm just name is slipping out of my mind. So it was this year. Of course, this year I've yet to start reading, so to say, being preoccupied with my book.
Right.
But the last one that I read was on Edwin Rommel, the desert fox.
Right.
And I had always been fascinated by what happened during the Second World War.
Right.
And how it came to, how did the countries come to fight such a war which virtually destroyed half the world.
Right.
So I was pretty fascinated with the reason thereof. So one of my favorite subjects that I pick up for reading are those relating to the World War.
Okay. I used to, incredible. And it's 3 o'clock, and I think we should start. We have lots of people who've joined us from all over the country. Educators, students, old ex-civil servants. Thank you all for joining us on this amazing afternoon. Just a few words of advice. This is a video webinar where in case you have a question, you'll be able to use the function where you can raise your hand. And you'll be, I'll make sure that I can take your questions in. We're joined with Shri Anil Swarupji, the ex-education secretary of the country, a prolific speaker, somebody with a long and illustrious political career, a reader beyond imagination. Welcome once again, sir. And today we are here to talk about his new book. We are here to talk about the joy of reading. We are here to talk about some significant achievements that the education sector has made under him, and to answer a lot of our questions. So welcome officially once again.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So let's just jump into it. Take us through this incredible journey of the book that you've just written.
I have been wanting to write a book when I was in service, thanks to a senior colleague of mine, Mr. Yogendarayan, who once told me that why don't you pen down what you're experiencing? I was going through some very interesting jobs.
Right.
And during discussions, I used to narrate my stories to him. He said, pen them down, the people might find them fascinating. Right. That is when it all started. At that point in time, I was Export Commissioner, Government of India. This was way back in 1997. And then I started thinking about it. And then I tried to recall. I had a habit of writing daily diary. So I used to write every morning about a page about the previous day.
Okay.
And that helped me recall some of the events. In fact, the Babri Masjid event about which I've written in the book was not written at that point in time. It was written subsequently. Okay. But the details I could fetch out from the diaries that I had kept with me.
What a treasure.
Yeah, that's right.
What a treasure. Incredible. And so from a reader to a writer.
Yes, I'm very fond of reading,
Yeah.
extremely fond of reading. I was not very fond of writing because in government service, more often than not, you're dictating down notes. In fact, my hand was so bad that I could not read what I wrote.
Right.
Gradually being persuaded to write something, I started writing, and then I started
Hmm.
enjoying.
So how long did the book take from, head to paper?
No, I have been, I mean, in fact, I had written different chapters at different times.
Okay.
So my editors are helping me to make it a bit jointed as it were. It was so disjointed. I wrote as it came to my mind. And
Right.
style of writing is more conversational. So
Correct.
it's nothing of literature in it. It's just, narrating what I felt and what I experienced.
Right. And I've heard you speak in public forums. Our colleagues have heard you speak, and there is one phrase that you use very often, which I think has become very dear to us, which is something you call the nexus of good. And in all these kind of domains of your life, I think that is something that you would find yourself right in the middle of. What is that nexus really?
Yes, actually, I had been very worried about the negativity around us,
Hmm.
whether in the civil service or in the society. There
Hmm.
is so much negativity. You
Hmm.
open the TV in the evening and the nation wants to know only negative things.
Correct.
I was trying to create a different narrative where
Hmm.
people start believing that good can happen because good is happening. The
Hmm.
misfortune is that good is not getting noticed, it is not being appreciated, it's not
Hmm.
talked about, and hence it's not being replicated. The good people fight their battle all alone. It's the bad people who come together and create
Band together.
someone else.
Yeah.
So I was exploring the possibility of good coming together, and that is where the Nexus of Good started. It was during my tenure as Secretary Education that
Hmm.
when I went around the country and I discovered such fabulous work being done in the interior areas, I
Right.
said that should be spoken about. I mean, some of the examples were absolutely amazing. I was so pleasantly surprised at what I saw in the field. I said, these stories need to be told. And
Yes.
that's where this Nexus of Good came up. And I'm glad it is gaining traction and people are believing that they can be Nexus of Good because good does exist. All
Yes.
that needs to be done is to bring it together on some platform.
Correct. And sir, now that you've mentioned about your journey across the country, tell us some really share some examples with us that will make us believe in the good that is happening in education again. All the
Okay.
questions that have come,
Let me,
a lot of them are about, sir, how can we revamp the system? Sir, how can we make the system better? But so much is already happening.
yes, yes. So in the first month of my existence as Education Secretary,
Hmm.
there were those quintessential Rai Sahabs or advisors who came down to me
Huh.
telling what needs to be done about education. And all of them were trying to give examples from countries like England, Finland, Holland, Scotland, and even Swaziland. So
Hmm.
they had examples of all the countries all the world.
Huh.
I asked them a simple question: if it were so easy to change things, why hasn't it happened? And they didn't have an answer for that. So
Hmm.
I decided to go around the motherland and see if there could be examples. So I traveled to about 24 states in the first 3 months of my existence as education
Wow.
secretary. And I traveled to places like Bastar, Sukma, drove down from Pune to Goa, getting down on the way to look at the schools,
Hmm.
drove from Srinagar to Kargil, not taking the national highway,
Wow.
the interior areas.
Right.
I mean, I came across about more than 100 examples which could be replicated in the country.
Hmm.
But one I must narrate here.
Please.
I walked into a school in a place called Pastepada, 120 kilometers north of Thane
Ah.
district.
Hmm.
And this was in the tribal area, and the school did not have any electricity. But when I went into a classroom, I found that every child had a tablet. There was a local Wi-Fi and a smart screen. So I
Oh,
asked the teacher, where does the electricity come from? You don't have
right.
power connectivity here. He took me behind the school and showed me a foldable solar panel by which he was charging the batteries. Then I asked him, how did you manage to do all this? He said,
Correct.
when he came to the school, he just had a second-hand laptop and he used to play these videos, educational videos, and children used to congregate around.
Right.
After about a couple of months, about 20 parents came to the school and they asked this teacher, earlier the child was not prepared to go to the school, now they want to go to the school. What has he done? So
Right.
he told them that he was showing them video films. Encouraged by the response of the parents, he requested the parents to contribute money for 2 more tablets for about 12,000 rupees, which they did.
Okay. Okay.
By which time an NGO and a CSR funding agency got to know about the good work that was being done here or attempted
Hmm.
here. So they funded the tablets. around this time, I visited the school. Normally, secretaries, government of India don't go to such remote places.
Right.
So I took a photograph of the teacher and tweeted it.
Okay.
Suddenly, he became a local hero. Then,
Right.
after within a month, I met the President of India on some other pretext. And I suggested to him that there is this teacher doing wonderful work. Would
Hmm.
you like to meet him? He agreed. So I called this teacher, Sandeep Gund, to Delhi. And he
Right.
met the president.
Right.
And a photograph was taken and that was tweeted.
Right.
Suddenly, he became a national hero.
Right.
By the time I quit education secretary job, we had more than 100,000 Sandeep Gunds in the country, reflected by the fact that the Maharashtra government had managed to replicate the Pastepada model in 60,000 schools of Maharashtra. Same model
Wow.
with minor changes, with the amount of around 350 crores not being given by Maharashtra government. It was crowdsourced through private sector funding. So
Oh,
this is a remarkable example of wonderful work that was being done in Pastepada. And the
yes.
best thing happened when I was visiting a remote school in Gujarat. A
Hmm.
teacher came running to me and he said he wanted me to go to his school. So I
Hmm.
said, why? He said, I have done better than Sandeep Gund.
Oh,
So
right.
I think there are
Yeah.
many, many such examples which are being replicated in the country. Good work being done, we need to identify, recognize them, replicate and scale them.
Yes, it is. You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. Good work is happening everywhere we are, and it makes me very happy to hear about the person from Gujarat, because that's where I come from. So, if models are being replicated in these states, that's just exquisite. Um, and one thing that is very close to all of us as Stones to Milestones is, of course, literacy education, um, and how to make language education accessible to children everywhere, and how to prepare teachers to teach language better. What would be some of the recommendations that you would give for that?
Today, technology allows you to do all these things.
Hmm.
We set up a platform called Diksha. It's a web-based platform,
Okay.
wherein instead of infusing such type of tools from outside,
Hmm.
the number of teachers that are doing good job can make their own videos and they could upload it, which can be curated and be used by others.
Wow.
Hundreds, thousands of videos created by teachers, curated, have been put there so that other teachers can benefit from it. Now, this is not merely in one language. A number of states also are using that platform. We were using the platform Ek Step of Nandan Nilekani. Once again, Nandan Nilekani has been of great help. His
Correct.
platform was of great help.
Right.
There is another layer created that was called Diksha,
Hmm.
and where all this material is being put. So today, technology allows you to train teachers, and that's very, very important to train teachers, because
Yes.
in my understanding, teachers are the pivot of Indian education. If we
Yes.
can take care of teachers, I think education will improve. Unfortunately, they have been neglected and they have been neglecting education for a variety of reasons.
Hmm. It's very sad to hear this, especially because we know what a fundamental difference is. It just takes just one teacher at the right time to change a child's life for the good.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. So coming back to your book, sir, tell us some things that we should definitely look forward to reading.
I think depends on your choice. It has a lot of variety. Beginning with my early years, then what I learned or did in the district where the Babri agitation was going on.
Hmm.
This was followed by, I think, one of the most amazing schemes called the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, arguably the biggest health insurance scheme in the world.
Yes.
It was a paperless, cashless, smart card-based health insurance scheme where a beneficiary could walk into any empaneled hospital anywhere in the country.
Wow.
It was a portable scheme, because all these schemes of the government, whether MNR, EGA or PDS, the benefits accrue to a beneficiary only in the place where he resides, or at best in the district, not outside the district.
Hmm.
Here, the smart card allowed him to travel to any part of the country and go to any empaneled hospital anywhere.
Wow.
I'm so glad that the present government also has come up with a health insurance scheme, which is a
Yes.
modified version of the earliest scheme, certainly a much more improved version. And as you go along, things do improve. And I'm glad that they have come up with this scheme. So that's another segment.
Yes.
I think some people will find most interesting would be the low coal segment in
The
the
coal
book,
segment. Yes.
because there I have tried to put some records straight. A lot of damage seems to have been done by the findings of the then Comptroller and Auditor General, Mr. Vinod Rai.
Hmm.
And I have tried to present before the world that some of the calculations that were done by CAG were not totally correct. And hence
Right.
the numbers that he came up with were also not correct.
Right.
But more importantly, the impact of such a report has been quite devastating in terms of governance. Because
Correct.
when I took over as school secretary, not many officers were prepared to commit themselves on the file, fearing penal action subsequently, which the officers earlier had faced. So
Right.
that was quite a negative impact of the CAG report.
Right.
And the report itself was not totally correct. I have tried to prove that in the book through some numbers. So that should be interesting. I think what would also be interesting would be the CBSE exam paper leak,
Yes.
which was a very trying experience for me. But I'm glad that I stood by an outstanding officer, Mrs. Anita Karwal, who was the chairman CBSE, and there were a whole gang of mafia trying to get rid of her. So, as I often jokingly say that in coal sector, the mafia was overground and the mining was underground. In the sector, it was the other way around. All the mafias are underground, eating into the essentials of this country.
Correct.
And if that is not corrected, we are in serious trouble. We did take some steps.
Yeah.
The book talks about the steps that were taken, especially in the context of Jammu and Kashmir, where we had come up with an action plan. And I'm glad I am given to understand that the action plan continues in Jammu and Kashmir, where an attempt is to exchange about 10,000 children by way of visits from Valley to other parts of the country, and children from other parts of the country to go to Valley for a better understanding of what is the ground reality is. I have personally visited, as I said, I traveled from Srinagar to Leh. I've seen interior areas of Srinagar and of the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir, where I could gauge as to what the mood is.
Yes.
And I must say that the mood is not as bad as it gets reflected in the newspapers here.
Yes.
Yes, there are problems, as there are problems in other parts of the country as well, and it can be tackled.
Yes.
There are certain pockets where there could be problem, but as far as the state is concerned, I think state has enormous amount of potential in a variety of ways.
Yes, and your Nexus of Good kind of comes back to this. Then what has been your motivation through this one constant maze of ups and downs of the life of a civil servant?
No, I enjoyed every moment. I mean, that's even when there was CBSE exam paper leak, I took it as a challenge.
Right.
When I remember when I walked in as Secretary Cole, it was like walking into a graveyard because everyone was so down and out. But I took it differently. I said the scene was so bad that whatever I would do would be an improvement, and I could walk away with the credit. So that is how I looked at it, and I'm glad that I had such a fantastic team. We used to jokingly say that give us the Kashmir problem, we just might be able to find a solution to it. That was the positive energy that pervaded in the Ministry of Coal, and I enjoyed the team. I did all the talking, and my team did all the walking.
Right.
That was the nature of the team. Absolutely, right. They had no reservations about working very, very hard, be there throughout. And it is a consequence of what they did that ultimately in Coal Ministry, we had only about 45 minutes of work. I, in fact, went to the PMO and told them that the Coal Ministry should be wound up and merged with Mines Ministry. I started from 24/7. So these are all interesting experiences. I have enjoyed every moment. As I said in the last chapter of my book, I say, if I were to be born again, I'd like to be an IS officer all over.
Yeah, that's fabulous. In fact, one of our attendees, Ms. Rupa Arun, she says that she's organized a student exchange like the one you say for the students of Army Goodwill School in Kupwara. And it was definitely very, very effective. So congratulations to you, to Rupa ma'am. Did you always wanted to be an IS officer, sir?
It's right. If you, again, the first chapter of my book brings it out very clearly. My fate was determined by my father.
Achha.
I think I knew when I gained consciousness, or I was a bit aware, 6-7 years.
Right.
I knew that I had to become an IS. I didn't know what IS was, but I knew I had to become an IS officer at that point in time. Yeah. So it was all determined, predefined, and I'm glad he did that because I enjoyed, as I said, every moment in the service.
Yeah. And how would you motivate the children today to look at IAS as an incredible career, an incredible option to make change?
What I would tell them is that have belief in your own capabilities. As I often say, खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी
रज़ा क्या है. Wonderful.
You evolve as an individual, so that you command respect, you don't demand it. You command a position in service, you don't demand it. You command a place in life, you don't demand it. You become where you can command it rather than demand it. You don't have to bend backwards before anybody. Throughout my career, I didn't have to do that. I lived the way I wanted to live. But for that requires a few sacrifices. I keep telling everybody, there's a price to be paid whether you toe the line or whether you don't toe a line. The choice is ours. We have to take that call whether we want to do that.
Yeah. And one question that emerges, from all the schools that you visited through the country, what are some practices that schools are adopting to increase social inclusion and to increase, different kinds of learners coming together and benefiting from one kind of learning environment?
See, right now the situation is very different in rural areas. People in urban areas don't realize that the problems there are of a totally different nature. Their inclusion is inclusion of anybody. I mean, you have to get the child not only to the school, provide quality education. So what has happened in the past decade is that we managed to get the child to the school. That's a great achievement. Earlier, the children, by and large, children are coming to the school. But the quality of education that is getting imparted leaves a lot to be desired. And irrespective of where we are throughout the country, that's an issue. We have to address that. And that can be addressed only by looking at the quality of pre-service training of the teachers, the quality of the examination system where we recruit teachers. And this, the urban people don't understand, because this is primarily the problem of rural areas, where in certain states, 25% of teachers don't go to the school at all. So we are discussing totally different issues, whereas the ground reality is totally different.
Correct.
Whereas you talk of inclusive education, my contention is fundamental problems of education are still to be addressed. Then we talk in terms of inclusive. Yes, it's an important issue. But first issue is to keep the child in the school. Look at dropout rates that are happening when they go to class 9 and 10.
Yes, especially for girls, just something like lack of bathrooms would discourage a girl.
Government did try, by constructing these toilets, this has actually helped. But there are a number of issues. First, to get the child to the school, which he has come, keep the child in the school and provide quality education. The rest of the issues can follow. But if we are able to address this, then it's like discussing a different problem altogether.
Right. I think, it's true, we, just a few days ago, the ASER report was launched, the 2018 State of Education Survey.
I'm sorry, I don't think ASER had any ASER on the education. We must question this. What is the point in coming up with these reports over and over the years when situation does not improve as it? Such reports should clearly bring out not only the what of it, but
the why of it also.
If you can't have the why of it, you won't find solutions. You can have reports published, you will have a lot of publicity, and people quote you because people like to quote negative things. They will pick up reports from ASER and report it. But ASER has to have an ASER for it to be really effective. It's very sad that they keep coming up with this report year on year. And I have refused to join discussions on this report because I feel it is serving no purpose whatsoever except condemning ourselves over and over again until we have a plan. And I'm a great believer that we should have, instead of policies and such reports, we should have clearly defined action plan for each state, perhaps for each region, clearly outlining what needs to be done, how to be done, who will do, and by when it will be done. This was initiated a few months ago. I was mentioning about Jammu and Kashmir, similar plan to be made for UP. Similar plan needs to be made for every state, which clearly outlines the responsibilities of various stakeholders in bringing about a change at the ground level. Mere coming up with these reports give them a lot of brownie points, a lot of publicity. People discuss it, quote it, they get international recognition, but the education remains where it is. So ASER has been coming out with these reports for past few years. What has been the ASER of this ASER? They don't really talk about it. So they will do another ASER report next year, and all of us will notice it and talk about it. And they'll get, as I said, a lot of brownie points and perhaps a lot of funding, international funding, to continue to do that ASER report.
So, one thing that you talk about was something that's very close to our hearts also, which is the training of teachers, especially pre-service teachers who are about to enter a classroom. One thing that we've come across is that the intent of the teacher is never, it's never bad, or it's never that, oh, I'll just go and I'll see what happens. How is it that we can sort of take this intention and translate to real accountable action? That is where I see most of our gaps.
So let us try and understand the whole teacher continuum. You can't pick up one slot and talk about problems relating to teacher. I think problems relating to teachers start with B.Ed and D.Ed colleges. That's the biggest mafia that is running education in this country. There are 16,000 apparently schools in B.Ed and D.Ed colleges, and 4,000 do not exist at all. They can give you a degree, and if you pay them well, they'll give you a naukri as well.
Right.
As bad as that. Now imagine such a teacher becoming a school teacher in a government school. What sort of a training will he give? So some initiatives were taken about a few months ago when I was there. I hope it is taken to logical conclusion and we rid ourselves of these schools. It is going to be difficult, but it can be done. That is one. Number two, the manner in which these teachers are selected is another issue which is very serious. One ex-chief minister is behind the bars for messing up with the selection of teachers.
Correct.
And the selection needs to be done. There was a suggestion already on table. I hope that gets implemented of central recruitment of teachers so that they can be deployed and no one messes up with this exam. Why can't we have a SAT or a CAT-like exam for teachers also centrally so that no one messes it up? The third is when the teacher does get selected, what sort of training that gets imparted? That is being attempted through change in the pattern of training of teachers. It has started. Again, I hope it is taken to its logical conclusion. Right. Then finally, how do you ensure that teachers do go to the school? When they're supposed to go to the school, they don't. For that, an experiment was done in the state of Chhattisgarh and Andhra Pradesh with some very good results in terms of using tablets for biometric attendance of teachers to at least ensure that the teachers are there. So a variety of steps have been initiated in terms of improving the quality of teachers, because if the quality of teachers does improve, they will certainly perform better in the class. So as I said earlier, teachers are at the pivot of education in India, and they have to be taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, most of our participants today are teachers from all kinds of schools, from international schools to your local government aided school. And I think, this is something that we all feel very passionate about. You take care of the teacher, you take care of the entire community. And that goes without saying. But there are certain learning outcomes that children have to reach, especially when you're in a formalized, standardized education system. And then that's one struggle that we're going through. And at the same time, we participate in examinations like PISA, for instance, where we are benchmarked against children of the world. So, how is it that we can prepare our children to be at a level where they're able to stand on a global scale and say that, we're achievers everywhere?
PISA comes much later. I'm not very sure whether the country is still prepared for a PISA type test. It's like World Bank doing ease of doing business in cities like Bombay and Delhi, and then projecting it as if it is ease of doing business in the country. I'm not in favor of that. PISA happens selectively in some places, and I'm not very sure whether that's the right way of going about addressing our issues. I think we are quite aware of the problems that we face in education. I think we should sit down and first try and address those issues. Assessment is to understand where things are going wrong.
Correct.
The understanding is that we know where things are going wrong.
Correct.
Without correcting them, if you just keep on assessing, as we are prone to on occasions, as Asar does, you keep assessing.
Yes.
How does it help? Does assessment only help? Assessment should help us in improving the state of affairs at the ground level. Now, if that doesn't happen, then neither PISA nor Asar will help.
Correct.
No, we fully appreciate the problems that we face.
Correct.
Now, if we are unable to take decisions relating to those problems that we face, that will improve the quality of education. What is the big deal in having assessment over and over again? So PISA is also an assessment. It'll tell you where do you stand, but how does that help? By merely understanding where you stand. We know where we stand. We know what the problems are. Diagnosis is there. The prescription is also there. The problems of application. We must, as I keep saying, when I say action plan of every state means action plan, meaning thereby implementing what we understand is going wrong to correct it.
Correct.
If we don't do that, repeated assessments are not going to take us anywhere. But assessment creates news, like Asar. They will hold a press conference. Everyone will talk to them. As I keep saying, they'll be quoted. But the education system doesn't improve. You keep on assessing, bring in PISA, there will be more newspaper reports, more headlines. No one seems to understand the ground reality. Right. So assessment is important, but we stop at assessment. We should get down to business and see how we could improve things. I can see a lot of questions being raised. I don't know whether you're taking note of them.
I am, sir. I am. Yes, I am. Uh, and I think you talking about the action plan is kind of leading us into one of the questions that Amit has asked, which is, what is the action plan that certain state governments have adopted under your leadership, where progress is happening, say Jharkhand, for instance?
No, two states. We made action plan for two states, Jammu and Kashmir and UP.
Okay.
Jammu and Kashmir action plan is underway. It's being worked out. I give you one example of the action plan. There were about 40 odd points in which action has to be taken.
Wow.
I alluded to one of the important points of exchange of children. The other was incorporation of NCRT curriculum in state. Now, this was very difficult to happen. It had not happened earlier. But the previous government accepted that. And how did they accept that? In my visit, one of the visits to Srinagar, I told the chief minister that you must be worried about your children not getting into IITs and medical colleges.
Right.
She said, yes. I said, if you teach them something else and something else is asked, how do you expect them to do it? So I told her then, the solution is that you adopt NCRT curriculum and you will see more children going in because they will read what is ultimately asked in the exam. Within 5 minutes, she took a decision to adopt NCRT, which has been going on for decades. They didn't adopt, they adopted it. Look at its impact on education, look at its impact on national integration, on understanding of history, geography of the country. So it does make a difference. So I'm glad Jammu and Kashmir plan is working. UP government plan could not take off, but I hope they look at it. The plan is there. It was worked out in consultation with the state officials. Unfortunately, the officials changed. I'm not aware whether they have picked up the plan, but they should do it. But these two action plans should be examples for other states to come up with similar monitorable action plans.
Yes, I think monitoring is the key. It's like you said, assessment shows you a mirror, but what you do about it and how you kind of create accountability in the plan is what makes all the difference. Absolutely. Yes. Another question that somebody else has asked earlier is, how it's a very interesting question, which is how civil servants can remain themselves, and not get swayed by the politics of everything around them.
It depends on the civil servant himself. It depends on him in the context of what he wants for himself. If he's looking for easy solutions, easy promotions, easy postings, then of course he will think about politicians.
Right.
But in the long run, in my understanding, it doesn't work. What works is the effectiveness of a civil servant. It is not the bidding of the politician. Some people get away with it, but most of the officers who do well are the officers who are sure of themselves, who are clear-headed, who want to do things on the ground and do the right things. In the long run, it helps.
Yes, absolutely. And you were talking about a platform, sir, that you had started where people could come and share their own ideas. And there are lots of people in our audience who want a platform like this. So
what I have done so far is basically through the Twitter, where a Twitter handle @ Nexus of Good has been created. But we plan to launch a web portal also, probably after I'm through with my book. We'll work on this platform of a web-based platform where we will have a platform where people can share their good practices. We are doing the groundwork at this point in time.
Wonderful.
Launching will happen sometimes in April after I'm through with my.
Wonderful. I think, this is great. All the attendees, please keep a track of the Twitter handle called Nexus of Good. Keep sharing ideas there and wait for an incredible new platform to come up from sir. And in the meantime, sir, if we go to reading, have you always been a reader? Or have you always loved reading from a young age?
No, when I was in school, I hardly read anything.
Oh, how did you? This is very interesting for us. How does one who does not read become such a voracious reader?
So, till class 12, I had physics, chemistry, and maths as my subjects.
Right.
Hardly any time to read.
Right.
And when I joined my Bachelor of Arts in Allahabad University, then I started reading a bit because I was trying to improve my language. I remember distinctly that I wanted to be a debater, and that is also there in my book. In one of the debates where I had mugged up the debate, and when I went onto the podium, I forgot a few lines and I was tongue-tied. I had to go to the podium. So one went through these failures and then discovered that if I read more and speak more, probably I'll become more eloquent, I'll be more fluent. And I made a very conscious effort to improve my diction, to improve my language. And in doing that, I remember distinctly someone advised that you read Thomas Hardy and all the English classics, which I started reading then.
Right.
So that helped me in improving my language a bit. But then I started liking the books. First, it was for a purpose. Then I
Right.
started enjoying reading. And then
Right.
it was not till the last, I think, 7 years. I remember for the past 7 years, I've been reading about 100 books a year. But before that,
Wow.
it was not so many. It was about 25, 30 books a year.
Which
But
is
then
quite
I
more
became
than.
a passion with me. Reading became a passion with me.
Hmm.
And what helped me read, and that can be helpful to anybody, is,
Yes.
is my traveling. I love traveling. So
Yes.
when you travel, there is one traveling from your residence to the airport and then waiting at the airport, then on the flight. What do you do?
Right.
If you can read. And
Right.
I looked at it this way, that if I travel to my office, say it took me about going and coming every day, 40 to 50 minutes, 20 minutes going and 25 minutes coming. And I read about 50 pages every day. I was reading 1,500 pages. And
Wow.
apart from that, if I were to travel to another destination in the country or travel abroad, there was so much time available. What do you do? I mean, I now wonder what I used to do traveling earlier, because there's nothing else to do. So might as
Yes.
well read. The option was what movies on the. I was earlier fond of movies. Maybe I gave up watching most of the movies, and that
Yes.
took to reading. At some point in time, I was so fond of movies that I used to watch every movie. Every Friday, I used to go for a movie. So I was very fond of movies. But then that love for movies fell by a bit,
Yes.
and I go to reading, and I am enjoying reading.
You.
One reason why I read is as I said earlier, the more I read, the more I discover how ignorant I am, and so
Yes.
the desire to learn is still there. So,
Yes. I think it's when you and I were chatting before, you said that people kind of say that, oh, I don't have the time to read anymore, but I do love reading. How does one break through that seeming myth in our minds?
no, it's all a question of time management. I have a capsule on time management which I speak to about business executives and how to manage your time,
Right.
because a lot of time gets wasted. We don't realize it. If we
Correct.
consciously look at the time that we spend, we should be able to find time. For example, some people take an hour to start their day.
Yes.
Some people do it in 5 minutes and they're through. So
Yes.
you can start early in the morning and you build such habits where you don't have to have 5 cups of tea before you start your day. And some
Correct.
people do require that.
Correct.
You save on time. Secondly, when you said not driving and you are sitting in a car, what do you do? And
Right.
that's when technology helped me. Earlier, I couldn't read in a car because I couldn't read a book. Now Kindle helps me to read in a car as well.
Correct.
So, you can always find, if you have the desire, you can find the way how to go about doing things.
What are 2 or 3 tips that you would give teachers to children who are really young, primary, pre-primary, elementary school teachers? How can they inculcate it?
I'm not an expert.
No, but just about
I can barely tell anything to teachers. In fact, I still get frightened talking to some of the teachers.
But this is about.
I'm not an expert at telling teachers as to how they should go about doing things. What I do is different. What I do is to pick up such teachers who are doing very well and then expose them to other teachers. They are in a better position to tell. My job as a manager, and that's why I keep saying I am glad that I was not a specialist. My job was not to do things myself. My job was to identify people who could do things better than anybody else, and then recognize them and then provide them a platform where they could interact with others.
Correct.
My job was more of environment management rather than doing it yourself. I've always believed that you should not be doing everything. I'm glad that I'm not an expert in anything. My only expertise lies in creating that environment where such experts can flourish.
Creating the nexus of good, as you say.
Yeah, that's one. Yes. That's one of the many things that I love to do.
One of the questions that we've got on the chat is, schools do realize the importance of training teachers. But how does one kind of approach a training not just as a box that has to be ticked, but as something that, how does one create inner motivation?
I'm so glad this question has been raised. Actually, it was not that the teachers were not being trained. It was done in a very haphazard manner. Because it was done as a target given to a particular area that so many teachers have to be trained for so many things.
Correct.
Now the Diksha portal allows you to understand what the teacher wants, how would he like to be trained, and what is available. So the training would now be much more structured in terms of the demands of the teacher and the demands of the situation. Rather than, I remember I used to call them teachers who were always on training. They were getting trained because they were not required elsewhere, they were getting trained.
Right.
So, it was more of a target and objective.
Yes.
Of training rather than training as an objective.
Right.
So that has partly been changed, and hopefully it will be changed further.
Right.
And Diksha portal allows you to have this database of teachers' training details also, what they have already got trained into. So
Okay.
right now there was no such database. Any teacher would be picked up for any training, they would there. It was not
Right.
based on the requirement of a train of requirement in the field.
Right.
Now they are able to do that through the Diksha portal.
Okay. And the portal, sir, is available for anyone and everyone to
It's in
access?
public domain. I'm told it's in public domain. It was in public domain. I've not seen it of late, but it was in public domain. Anyone can access that and see what's going on.
Okay. We have a young aspiring IAS officer who's asking a question, you know, how challenging can Uttar Pradesh be for young civil servants?
So if you've done it in Uttar Pradesh, it's like cakewalk elsewhere.
It's like your PhD at the very beginning.
Uttar Pradesh is tough. That's why when I did my stint in Uttar Pradesh, where there is a crisis almost every day, in Delhi, there's hardly any crisis. That's how I could manage the CBSE crisis once in a while.
Correct.
Same time of crisis almost every day.
Correct.
UP is tough, but that's the beauty of it. If it's not tough, you won't enjoy it. I mean, you enjoy if it's straight, nice road traveling. It's ups and downs that you enjoy in life.
Yeah.
That teaches you a lot.
Where does your power come from, sir? Who is your, who is that?
My
What
power
is
comes
that?
from within.
Yeah, what is that voice inside you? What does it tell you every day?
What is right, what is wrong, I try and do that.
Yes.
It's not that I have not committed mistakes in life. I committed numerous mistakes, both in personal and professional life. But I've tried to learn from those mistakes. After all, I am a human being.
Right.
We do commit mistakes, and my effort has been to learn from those mistakes and try and not commit those mistakes. We all are fallible. I have committed a lot of mistakes, I must admit, but I've tried to learn from those mistakes.
And one other question that we have is, we sometimes often have the perception that majority of our officers are not honest. But why, again?
I don't think this perception is correct. The perception comes from the fact that those that are visible are not so honest.
Right.
Because see, news by definition is an exception.
Right.
But we all believe that the news is the rule. I mean, if we reflect on what we perceive about newspapers, by definition, if it's a routine thing, it won't be a news.
Right.
It is an exception, but we treat that exception as a rule. So if we find an officer is caught taking a bribe, we start believing that every officer is taking bribe.
Right.
If that were the case, then it won't be news at all.
Right.
That is number two. The good work that is being done by officers doesn't get to be noted for a simple reason. All of us are very fond of masala.
Right.
We don't like good news. We want to talk negatively about others. That's where Nexus of Good comes in.
Right.
That there is good happening. It's not being talked about. So everyone believes that everything is going wrong. It's not so. There's so much good that is happening. We don't notice it, and hence we don't appreciate it, and hence we don't replicate it. And of course, we then cannot scale it.
Yes. Yes. You're right. One more question. There are lots of people who want to thank you for your service. I think there's an overwhelming kind of support coming your way here. We're saying that we've been so lucky to have somebody like you at the helm for so long. Another very interesting question is that what are two traits or two habits of yours that have brought you so far? Sir,
one is the discipline part.
Right.
One is being very disciplined. And second, focusing on the moment that you're in, on your karma. I have not focused so much on the results. I have really believed in karmanya vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana.
Right.
One is a focus on yourself, and the other is the focus on the present. Past is one I have no control over it. I have brooded over things in the past, especially in the context of the mistakes that I have made in order to learn. But beyond it, I think I don't have anything to learn from the past except learn from my mistakes. So I look for doing what I can do at the present moment. That is one. And second, I have looked at inward myself. I have always believed उम्र भर यही भूल करता रहा गले धूल चेहरे पे थी आईना मलता रहा तो मैं अपने चेहरे की धूल देखता रहता हूँ कोशिश करता हूँ.
Wow, it's amazing. There is one associate professor who's joined us, and he's saying that when schools hold 50-60 children in a class, when colleges hold 100 children in a class, we are definitely not ensuring right attention and right education for all.
I totally agree with me. If I were to have my way, I never handled higher education.
Right.
But if I were to have my way, subsidizing higher education is criminal.
Mm.
We should not be subsidizing higher education. In fact, if benefit has to be given to certain class of people, they should be given scholarship, they should be allowed loan. But I think across the board, subsidizing higher education is leading to the situation which the professor is saying. I totally agree with him. There's no point in having 100 children. Half of them are there just because they don't have anything else to do. They're
Right.
just there. World over, in all developed countries, higher education is not subsidized. I don't know why we subsidize. All this money should go to the primary education, to school education,
Yes.
and higher education should not be subsidized.
Yes.
It can be, if at all any subsidy has to be given assistance, it has to be direct cash transfer to the particular individual rather than institution. Imagine, look at the fee that you have in Delhi University and look at the money that goes to run that university. It is criminal. Why should we have that?
Right.
I mean, people are prepared to pay thousands of rupees in a private school, and when they Delhi University, they are paying a pittance there. So that doesn't work.
Yeah. In fact, you've addressed another question that one of the other attendees had, which is, there are government schools that are striving so hard to provide affordable education, and then yet there are people, people who may be your drivers or your people who come to clean your homes. They're so fascinated with private schools that they're willing to pay 30,000-40,000 rupees a year just to send their child to a good private school, because the impression of a government school is that yahan to kuch nahi hota.
But all the analysis has revealed that it is not so bad. Some government schools are bad, but quite a few of them are very good. But there is a scope for a lot of improvement in government schools.
Yes.
And the problem arises, as I said in the beginning, because of the manner in which teachers are trained, manner in which they are selected, manner in which they are trained when they are in service. All these issues need to be addressed for government education to improve.
Yes.
So I'm a great believer in improving public education. But let me clarify this whole debate about public versus private. I'm not in favor of that. Because I do believe there are good schools in private, there are good schools in public. Right. The good of both should come together, and there is a sufficient space both for the public and private sector to contribute to improving quality of education in the country. I don't think they should fight with each other. They should sit together and learn from each other.
Yes. And now that you mentioned public-private, there is also another divide between rural schools and urban schools, and especially with the whole Skill India initiative getting so much traction. One of our educators from our urban schools is asking us, should vocational training be made compulsory in urban schools as well?
I'm not in favor of making anything compulsory. I mean, this business of mandating and compulsory, though I'm an ex-civil servant and people believe that government wants to mandate, I was totally against it. If I create a product or a service or an idea which is good enough for people to buy that, that is how it should be. If vocational training has to be brought in, then I should be able to convey this message that vocational training is better than that guy studying history and geography in class 11 and 12. You should go for vocational training. I should be able to market it in a manner that it becomes acceptable to the child or his parents rather than merely mandating it. Mandating doesn't help. Because then I will never be able to test whether the decision taken is right or wrong. Yes. If I market it and let the society determine, let the market determine as to whether that is right or not, it will have a long-term impact. And I am a great believer in that. Throughout my career of 38 years, except for law and order where we used to mandate things. Otherwise, I don't think we should be mandating too many things. We should to me, government should play a role of a facilitator. As education secretary, people ask me, I said, I am playing the role of a facilitator and bringing the public-private together. Wrote to them that by coming together, both of you will benefit. And it did work. So many MOUs were signed between the state governments and the NGOs. And so much good work is happening. Look at what Akshara Foundation is doing. Look at what Sampark Foundation is doing. Look at what Kaivalya Foundation is doing. All these are doing absolutely amazing work because we facilitated, helped them to come and discuss with the state governments and do this work.
Okay, so you were talking about facilitating
what I was saying was that you have such remarkable NGOs like the Kaivalya Foundation, the Sampark Foundation, the Akshara Foundation. All these are doing remarkable work. Imagine if, as they are doing now, if they work in tandem with the public sector and the state governments, they can revolutionize. Look at the change that Akshara Foundation has brought about in Karnataka. Now they have entered Odisha. Look at what Sampark Foundation has done in Chhattisgarh. Now they're going into other states. Again, I think it's got snapped again. Okay, no problem, no problem.
Yes, I'm here. I
Yes,
can hear
yes.
you.
So,
Yeah.
so in short, what I was trying to say was that the two have to work in tandem for bringing about a transformation in education, and we should learn
Yes.
from each other.
And I think this very beautifully answers a question that somebody else has also asked, which is, what is one tip that you would give to administrators of education? And I think, acting as facilitators, like you said. Uh,
I think we've had regulation for too long. I'll
hmm.
give you an example. I think there was a lot of concern about the uh, arbitrary increase of fee by private schools. This had been going on for donkeys years.
Yes.
And look at
Yes.
how beautifully, by sitting around a table, did the UP government do it. So FICCI Arise took a lead. The
Hmm.
owners of the school came together. They sat with the state government and came up with the legislation, a draft
Hmm.
legislation, which was passed by the state. And
Hmm.
now schools are happy, parents are happy, owners are happy, government is happy. So I've always believed that you can find solutions to such problems, provided I don't come up with a fixed idea, understand what the other's problem is. And in education, there's wealth of experience within the country. We don't have to
Yes.
go outside the country for that. There's
Yes.
such good models that are available. We can learn from each other and improve. In fact, I take pride in the fact that the 2 years that I was there as education secretary, one did manage to bring out both public and private sector together to move education forward.
Yes, and I think using technology in education has been a passion area for you, because I've heard you speak. I've heard you speak about it, and uh, I know of Diksha now. What is it about technology that holds so much power for you, especially?
See, technology not merely in education. One of the problems in administration
Hmm.
has been the delays in decision making. And
Right.
there are about 2, 3 chapters in my book when I was heading the project monitoring group. And
Hmm.
this was at a time when clearances was not happening as a consequence of various scams that had happened,
Right.
Commonwealth scams, coal scams. Officers were not taking decisions on files. So all these projects were stuck. That is when I was asked to head the project monitoring group to fast track projects above 10,000 crore, sorry, 1,000 crore. So
Yes.
these were huge projects. And to take a decision on that, everyone was apprehensive.
Right.
Technology came handy. How did technology come handy?
Yeah.
We digitized the process to see where the file was pending. We made
Ah.
it transparent.
Right.
That office of project monitoring group, there was not a single file of paper. And
Right.
learning from that, we did that in coal. All the coal block auction, people say it was successful. It was successful on account of use of technology. Again, in the coal ministry, there's no, at least there was then no file or paper.
Hmm.
Everything was being handled digitally. So
Hmm.
was the case in the Ministry of Education. Now, this helped in a number of ways. Apart from fast tracking the decisions, it also enabled me to travel throughout the country. I think you
Yes. No, I'm
I,
here, sir. I'm here. Yes.
yes, throughout the country where I could do my files on this laptop. I didn't
Right.
have to be in the office to do that, nor did
Right.
any other officer to do it. I've always believed that we have to go to the place where the problem is. And
Right.
people ask me, how did you manage to do what you did in coal? Simple.
Hmm.
I didn't hold a single meeting in Delhi during my tenure as Secretary Coal Education with the state governments.
Right.
All meetings were held in the field at the state headquarters, and I used to go to mines to understand the ground reality. That's where the problem is. We have this funny feeling here in Delhi that all the wisdom resides here in Delhi and states don't do it. I don't think that's right. There's so much
Right.
wisdom around in the country. If you go
Right.
around and understand the problem, and what we did was we were able to convey a value proposition to stakeholders. That's very, very important for getting things going. So if you could
Yes.
tell the state governments, if we could tell Coal India what is the benefit that will accrue to them, I think the acceptability of that proposition would be much more as compared to pushing something down the throat. And that's why I
Yes.
said I was not a great believer in mandating things. I was a
Yes.
great believer in marketing ideas, marketing proposals, so that the stakeholders accept it, and that
Yes.
would help in the long run.
Yes. And this has answered a few questions that people also had about successes from your careers in the coal secretariat. And one question which is very special to us, and which I was going to ask anyway, which is how can libraries, government libraries, school libraries, state libraries, facilitate as these places where all these ideas can come together and really flourish? Because we talk about reading being the seat of so many positive things. And at the
Yes,
same time,
libraries play a very, very important role. Of course, now with technology coming in, there will be different type of libraries that we have.
correct,
I mean,
correct.
but till such time technologies goes to rural areas, I think libraries will play an important role for people to understand, to assimilate, to analyze, to grow. All
Yes,
that is important. Libraries can play a very, very important role. And
yes.
historically also libraries have got, got that position.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, when I do visit libraries now, I find that they are not being used because
Hmm.
of variety of alternatives that are now available, both internet and otherwise. You can do a lot of research on the internet itself. You don't have to actually go to a library to look at a book physically. So that will change. But nonetheless, I think access to library will continue to play an important role in terms
Yeah.
of understanding and learning.
Yeah, and I think there are fabulous library programs that are going on in the country. There are fabulous things library educators are trying to make possible for their children. People making, digitizing books, printing books in printable formats, the whole open source world, where it's not copyright, but it's available for every child who wants to develop that love for reading.
No,
Uh,
there is no dearth of material available. In fact, it's the other way around. It's all a jungle there.
it's
Now
too much.
require more to do in terms of finding the right material. One of
Yes,
the other things which Diksha is doing is actually acting as a moderator to enable people to access the right thing that they want. So
right,
they're going to rate uh, each material that comes on the portal.
right.
So they provide a navigation tool to the reader to go to the right place. In fact, a lot of material is already available on the net. You
That's
type
fabulous.
something and you'll get hundreds of videos coming in. You
That's
will spend the
fabulous.
entire day looking at all the videos to find out which one is good. So
Right.
that's where, again, Diksha will help rating each of the videos, and then the audience rating and readers rating. This will help people to navigate and go to the right place to understand what they want to
Right.
do.
And the more you talk about Diksha, the more attractive a portal it sounds. And
Diksha is
I
an amazing,
request,
amazing, amazing.
uh, I I request all the teachers who have joined us on this webinar to please visit the platform, to please visit the portal and see. I think this whole nexus of good and learning coming from everywhere are two very strong thought chains that have emerged from this conversation. And I'm sure that we'll be able to see more and more of that in your book, where we literally read about you navigating these different things and kind of try to put ourselves in your shoes and think about what we may have done, or how our moral compass would have
There is a very
reacted.
interesting question that is coming here regarding no detention policy. I see it
Ah,
because
yes,
let
yes,
me because it's quite an issue.
yes,
You know what has happened? As I said earlier, without understanding the ground realities, we've tried to import ideas from abroad, and this came from Finland of no
mm,
detention policy. I
right,
think ideally there should be no detention policy. I agree with that. But we
yes,
do not have an ideal situation here. We must understand the ground reality and accordingly decide what is good for the country.
right,
However, the amendment that has been done now is not doing away with no detention. What has happened is it has been left to the state government to decide whether they want to have detention or no detention. Earlier, they had no option. Earlier, the option was you couldn't detain them.
right.
So even if the states wanted to detain them, they couldn't because
They
that was the
couldn't,
law. So
right.
now the option, I have always pitied, why should Delhi decide what the state should do? Let the states take a call whether they want to have a detention policy or no detention. I may have a personal view on detention policy, but I should
Correct,
not be imposing that personal view on all these states. They are elected governments. Let them take a call whether they want to detain or not detain. That's precisely
right,
what has happened. People
right,
have misunderstood it as saying that you have done away with no detention policy. No, the states can still detain a child, not detain a child. They can continue with that law and say that no, we will not detain any child. As I said, I may have a personal view on that, but I have always believed such issues should not be decided centrally in Delhi.
mm. Yeah,
I hope Mr. Sulkhan, who would ask this question,
so
understands that.
yes, Mr. Shubham, I think he's happy with the answer that he's received. We are in the last few minutes of the webinar, sir, and it's just been an incredible conversation. Some before I open more questions from the people, and if you from the audience have a question to ask, please either type it or you can raise your hand. But before we leave, sir, any last words about just education, about reading, about your book?
My book, okay, this is meant for anybody who wants. It could be a bit
Yes,
of entertainment. It could be of understanding of what problems does a bureaucrat face during his career. It could
yes.
be for somebody who wants to know how do you get out of a mess that you get into. How can you create a mess? All sorts of things. I think it's a journey of a civil servant.
Right.
encompassing 38 years. So full of fun, and there were occasions when one did feel tense. But all in all, I think I enjoyed the service. I enjoyed writing this book, writing those chapters, and I hope the readers will enjoy it as well.
Wonderful. And sir, there are many more questions for you, which I don't think we'll have the time for. So is there any place where these questions could be asked?
Okay. Can I give my email ID and they can send those questions to me? I'll answer them.
Yeah, I think it'll be very.
So my email ID is swarup8@yahoo.com. If you could type it, SWARUP, number 8 @yahoo.com. That's my email ID. 8 @yahoo.com.
Yes.
And the second is they can reach out to me on Twitter as well @ Swarup58, SWARUP58.
Wonderful.
And those that want to attend one of these launches, they can mail me on the mail that I've given or send me a message on Twitter along with their place where they want to attend, as well as their contact details, that is email ID, so that we can formally send an invite for them to attend this.
I think I'm just going to share that part of the screen again where we can see.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, these are all the dates and all the places where sir's book launch will be live. Delhi is 23rd of Feb. Lucknow is 5th of March. Kolkata is 12th of March. Bangalore is 23rd of March. Mumbai is 6th of April. Mumbai has actually 2 slots, so we are lucky. Thank you.
Noon and afternoon.
Yes, and then we have Jaipur on the 18th of April. And I believe, sir, the book will be available on all sources for us to.
Yes, from 8th of February, hopefully, it will be available for pre-booking on Amazon.
Great. Wonderful.
And actual availability will begin on the day of first launch, that is 23rd of February.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And sir, because I know lots of people joined us late, can you just talk about the cover of the book again and the important pieces that join it?
There are 4 elements there, the 4 critical moments of my career. One, of course, is on the forefront as Coal Secretary. That probably was perhaps the most challenging assignment, where everything had gone wrong. Then on the left side, you have the CBSE written there. This actually reflects the problem that we had in the exam paper leak. Again, one of the major challenges that I faced. On the right side, on the top, you have 2 cards. They are smart cards for Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, the National Health Insurance Scheme, arguably the biggest health insurance scheme, paperless, cashless. And below that, you have the Babri Masjid, where people have climbed up. That was the day, the fateful day of 6th December, when the Babri Masjid came down.
Right, right. And so much thought has gone into designing the cover. So much thought has gone into the writing of it. And we know that it's because you're such an incredibly thinking person. We've been so lucky to be led by you in all the different capacities that you've led us in. And a world of thanks to you. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Thank you for talking about everything from education to teacher training to reading to sharing more about your book. And I'll request everyone who's joined us through this webinar to please see if you can attend any of these launches in person. I most definitely will be seeing you in Bombay, sir, when you're launching your book here. Thank you so very much for your time. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.